welcome back to my channel. This is Erica from Confessions of a Homeschooler, and today I'm going to show you how to make this super cute little mini tote bag. It's got a zipper opening, and if you guys are afraid at all of doing zippers, please don't be. This is super easy, definitely beginner friendly. It's got a nice little pocket in here, as you can see. This is the perfect bag for sewing, knitting, embroidery, any of those little fun craft projects you like to bring places. It's also a really cute little travel bag. This pocket's the perfect size for a tablet or a book, and then you can stuff other goodies inside, of course. So anyways, we're gonna learn how to make this bag today. It's super fun, it's super cute, it's super easy, definitely beginner friendly, and so I hope you will join me in today's tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, supplies for this project are pretty simple. You need a couple of pieces of batting for your bag. You need a piece of batting for your outer pocket, a couple of pieces of batting for your handles, 2 pieces of lining, 2 pieces for your outside of your bag, and then you're gonna need 12 just random kind of pieces of fabric for the front patchwork pocket. You're gonna need a piece of fabric for the lining, a zipper, couple pieces of fabric for the handles, a rotary trimmer, and of course a ruler and your self-healing mat. All of the cutting instructions and exact measurements will be in the PDF download below, so make sure to click the show more link and then just click on the PDF download so that you can get the exact measurements for this bag. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I like to go ahead and get my handles done and just kind of out of the way. So what I've done is taken my handle pieces and pressed in the ends by 1/4 inch, pressed in the long edges by 1/4 inch, and then folded that whole thing in half and pressed it again in half. And then what we're going to do is just take our batting piece and just kind of fit it in there, folding in the edges like I just mentioned. And you just have to kind of line up the edges, fold them in carefully, and then clip them. And let's see if my camera will focus, and I'll kind of show you what that edge then looks like. Okay? So I just fold up the bottoms first and then the sides. You can do it the other way. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure that you have a finished edge down here on the bottom. And so like I said, I'll just put a wonder clip there, do the same thing to the other end, and then we're going to take this whole thing over to the machine and sew all the way along the outside of it. You can also do some fun stitches in the middle if you want. It's totally up to you. Either way, we're going to do that same thing to both of our handles, and then I'll meet you right back here. All right, so here are my 2 straps. I've sewn around all 4 sides just to secure them, and then I'm just gonna clip off these little strings, and then we're going to set these aside and start working on our front pocket. All right, so we're gonna do patchwork for our front. Now, if you would like to just do a solid piece and you don't wanna do this, you can just make the front of your outside pocket the same size as the lining, and you can do a solid piece of fabric, but I like the patchwork look, so I just laid my pieces out how I like them, and I'm basically gonna sew this row together, this row together, and this row together, and then we'll sew all 3 rows together, and I'll kind of show you how to do that. My tips are to start like this. Bring all 3 of these over to your sewing machine and sew down all 3, and then I'll bring them back and add that row and that row, and they actually all kind of stay together that way and don't get out of order. All right, so here's my first row sewn. Now I'm just gonna take this one, bring it over to the machine, and do the same thing. So all down this, and then I'll come back and add this row. All right, now I'm gonna take these over to the sewing or the ironing board. I'm gonna sew these seams going this direction, these seams going this direction, and these seams going this direction so that I can nest my rows when I sew them together. Okay, so hopefully you can see these seams are going this way, opposite and opposite. So that way when I fold these right sides together and I go to sew them together, these seams right here will nest. So they're going opposite directions, if that makes sense. And that'll give you a really nice crisp corner. So I'm gonna take this over to the sewing machine. I'm gonna sew that row together, and then I'll open it up and add this bottom row. All right, so I've sewn these 2 rows together, and now all we need to do is flip this row up, line up our seams again, and sew down this, and we'll be done with the outside front pocket. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is make a quilt sandwich with our front pocket, outside lining, and batting. And all I do is just take my lining piece, put it face down or wrong side up, and I'm just going to, I use spray based, you can also use pins, totally up to you, it doesn't really matter. And we're just going to baste this on so that it sticks long enough for us to quilt something fun on it. And honestly, I'm just using a little bit here. This is a small project. I just need it to hold together long enough for me to get some quilting lines on it. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the front, and I'm just gonna go ahead and throw some on there. All right, and now you can quilt this however you want. You can do fun lines. I think since this is a patchwork, I will probably run 1/4 of an inch down both edges of the seams and just kind of give it even more, enhance the patchwork look. But you can totally do whatever you want. So I'm gonna do that really quick, and then I'll meet you guys back here. All right, so I am done quilting this, and as you can see, I just did patchwork quilt on it, like I mentioned. And then I forgot to mention this piece in the introduction, but it is in the PDF, so don't worry, it's all down there. But you need some binding for the top of your pocket. So all I did was take our binding piece and fold it in half, wrong sides together, and iron it really quickly. I'm going to take the raw edge and place it against the raw edge of the top of your pocket. All right, and we're gonna take that over the sewing machine and just sew 1/4 of an inch all the way down. All right, so now we've attached it, the raw edges, to the top of our bag. We're basically gonna fold it up, and if you want, you can take it to your iron and just press it. I don't usually, but you're gonna fold it up and then around the back side. And then you're just gonna run a stitch to secure that down this back side. And I just run it right along the edge, about 1/8 of an inch or so I'm not getting into the binding on the other side. All right, so our pocket should be looking like this. You've got lining on one side, pretty stuff on the other side, and a nice strip of binding here. We're gonna take our front pocket and our strips and set them aside. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is prepare the outside of our bag. And so I've got my 2 pieces right here, and I'm going to kind of prepare them the same way I did my pocket. So I'm gonna take one of my pieces of foam here and just put it on here, and I'm just going to spray baste it on there and then take it over to my machine and just do some fun, you know, whatever kind of quilting on it I want. I'm gonna do that for both pieces. Okay, so I just went ahead and ran some diagonal lines down. You can probably kind of see on this side. I did that to both pieces. That will secure the foam onto the back. And by the way, this foam is super easy to sew through. A lot of times, if you've seen my other tutorials, I just use regular batting because it's scraps I have left over for quilting. This I had in my stash as well, and I thought it would be fun to show you guys. This does give your bag a little bit more support and stability, and you'll kind of see that when we're done. Okay, we can set these aside now. So we are going to do our inside pocket next. So I'm just gonna take my piece, and I think I might have forgot to show this in the beginning as well, but it is in the PDF, so we're good. And you're just gonna fold it in half lengthwise. So then you're going to just sew down this edge into about here, down this edge to about here, and just leave about a 2 inch or so opening so that you can flip it inside out when we're done. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so here we are, and I just have this handy little tool from Clover. I will link it for you below, but it's just like a Hera marker, so you can use it to mark your quilts. You can also use the pointy end to turn projects. So that's what we are doing. And I'm just going to carefully turn my pocket right side out. Okay, so as you can see, I've got it all turned inside out, and then if you just kind of grab it with your fingers, you can kind of finger press this edge down here. You can also press it with an iron just to get it nice and straight. I'm not going to sew this shut yet because it'll get sewn shut when we add it to the inside of our lining, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, so here's our lining, and we just need to take one of the pieces, set the other one aside, it doesn't matter which one. And then we are just going to make sure that our closed edge or our folded edge is facing up towards the top of our bag, and then our seamed edge is towards the bottom. It just looks nicer that way. If you mess that up, it's honestly not a big deal. And then you're just going to kind of center your pocket on your lining piece. I just kind of eyeball this, but let's see here. Mine is about 3.5 inches from the top. So that gives me a little bit more at the bottom, but you can totally do it however you want. And so now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew down this side all the way across, making sure to close up my hole, and then back up the other side. And then I just do a back stitch here and here just to give my pocket a little bit of extra structure and strength. The other thing you can do at this point is you can do a couple other lines down the middle. If you want smaller pockets, you can leave it all one big one. I think I will probably run a stitch down the middle so that I have 2 smaller pockets. Okay, we can take this now and set it aside. We're getting close to being done with this bag, you guys. A few more steps. We're going to deal with our handles now. And so we are going to take our bag fronts and our handles, and we're actually going to do this a little different than I normally do. We're going to sew our handles on first, and that is because I'm actually going to be attaching the handles kind of down here, and then when we sew the zipper, we'll push them out of the way. The reason I'm doing that is because I want the handles to kind of show down here, and it's just going to look a little bit cuter with our pocket. So to get our placement, we're going to take our pocket over here and just line it up with the bottom of one of our pieces of front or back, it doesn't matter, they're both the same, and just kind of see where we want our straps to go. And I kind of want my straps, you can either make it so they kind of are even with your pocket, so they look like they're coming out of the pocket a little bit, or you can put them up a little bit higher. I'm going to make them even with my pocket. So my straps are going to be about 3 inches down, and I'm going to do about 2.5 inches in from the side. So 3 inches down, 2.5 inches in. I'm just going to get one of my pins here and go ahead and just kind of pin it right on there. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and just want to make sure that your strap is, of course, straight. So 2.5 inches and 3 down. You're going to do that to both pieces. There we go. So just make it even. Whatever you did on one side, just do that same thing on the other side. You can really kind of put your handles wherever you want. All right, now that we have our handles kind of set where we want, we're going to take them over to the sewing machine, and we're going to do a box with a cross inside. So I'm going to sew about a 1-inch box down, across, over, and back across so that you have a square, and then I'm going to do a couple going crisscross diagonally so there's like an X inside the box. I'm going to do that on all 4 of the handle edges here. That'll make it look cute. It also gives it extra strength when you do the box with the cross in the middle. It just gives a little bit more strength for carrying heavier items in your bag. So for this first row, I'm actually going to just sew right along my seam line that I made before. Okay. Now I can go ahead and remove my pin. I'm just going to go up about 1 inch. And you can measure this, you can eyeball it. Just make sure you do all 4 of them about the same. There you can kind of see what we're after. The box with kind of the X inside. And if I'm doing something that I know is going to be carrying heavier projects, then I will go back over all of these edges, maybe, you know, twice, just to give it a little bit of an extra strength. This is going to be a knitting bag for me, so it doesn't need anything super heavy, so I think this is probably sufficient. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on all of the other handle edges, and then I will catch back up with you. All right guys, here we are. So I did measure, and I actually did go up about an inch, so I don't measure those kinds of things, but if you want to, you can. So I did about an inch up each side for the X. So anyways, here's our two sides. We are going to set one of them aside right now, and the other thing we're gonna do really quickly before we assemble our bag is just tack on this front pocket. So pick whichever side you feel like looks the best, and then just run, it's called a basting stitch, but really all it is something that's a super wide stitch just around these three edges, and that's just to keep this in place so that when we start assembling our bag, we don't forget it or put it on backwards or anything weird like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do it with my sewing machine. You can do it by hand as well, and just do the longest stitch length that my sewing machine has, and I'm just gonna run a quick stitch all the way around these three sides. Of course, you wanna leave your top open. Okay, so I have just secured my pocket to the front of my bag, and I'm actually gonna set the front of my bag aside. We're gonna go ahead and start assembling our bag now. Okay guys, all right, sorry, my battery died, and so it's a new day, new outfit, probably new lighting for you guys, so I apologize for that, but we are gonna pick right up where we left off yesterday, which was assembling our zipper. So this is super easy, and I wanna give you confidence that if you haven't ever done a zipper before, you can definitely do this project. So I'm gonna start with the back side of my bag, and I've just folded my handle down so it's out of the way. If you're worried about your handle getting caught up in your seam, you can always just stick a little pin here for now. It's totally up to you. We're gonna have our bag backing facing right side up, and then we're gonna take our zipper, and here's the zipper. So the side that has the zipper pull on it is considered the right side of the zipper. So that is going to be right side down. So your zipper pull is going to be facing the outside of your bag. And we're just going to lay it across there. Right now I'm not worrying about where the zipper pull is. I do want it off the edge a little bit because I don't want this opening with this metal bar here on it. So I'm just gonna kind of center my zipper. Now, my zipper, as you can see, is really long. This is just the color that I happen to have that matched my bag. You just want a zipper that's longer than the width of your project, and you should be good to go. So we're gonna just lay that down and line it up with our top edge of our bag here. And then we're going to take our lining piece, and this is my one with my pocket, as you can see. We're just gonna make sure that the opening of the pocket is facing the top of our bag. So then we are going to flip this right side down. We're going to line all of that up, and then I'm just going to stick a few wonder clips on here just to kind of keep everything in place. Now I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to run a stitch all the way down this edge, getting as close to my zipper as I can. And if you have a zipper foot, you're welcome to put it on there. I am not going to put one on my machine because I just kind of like to show you that you can really make these bags. They're super simple. You don't need special feet or anything. If you don't have a zipper foot, you will see a little bit more of this blue fabric, but it still works just fine. So if you have one, you can use one. If you don't worry about it. So here's kind of what my sandwich looks like. I'm going to take this over to my machine, and like I said, sew all down this edge. I also just quickly wanted to point out that if you have a foot that looks something like this, you can definitely use this. Just take your needle and scoot it over all the way as far to the left as you can go, and then you're actually going to be able to get a lot closer. So again, this is just a tip for modifying one of your current feet to help you with the zipper if you don't have a zipper foot. And just as I go, I'm just going to keep making sure that everything is staying nice and lined up. So just take your time. Okay, your project should now be looking something like this, where you've got your zipper kind of sticking out. Make sure that, again, your zipper pull is facing the outside of your bag. I'm going to now take this over to my ironing board and just iron down this edge just to kind of help give it a better crease. And then I'm going to go back over to my sewing machine and just sew a quick straight stitch down this edge just to help keep the lining kind of going the right direction. Okay, so here is what our product should be looking like now. I just ran a quick stitch right across here just to kind of seal that a little bit better, give it a little more finished look. And now we're going to basically repeat the same process, only with the front of the bag. So the first thing we want to do is fold down our handle, and for this one you can actually kind of just tuck it in that pocket, get it out of the way. So we're going to have our front of our bag right side up. We're going to take our zipper, much like we did last time, pretend like all this isn't on there, and we're going to put it right sides down and line it up along this edge. Again, make sure this handle is folded down and out of the way. And then of course you kind of just want to line up the sides of your bag to make sure that it's kind of on there straight. Okay. And then we're going to take the lining piece, our other lining piece, and put that on top, right sides down. And again, line all of that up along that top edge up there. Okay, and I'm just going to secure this with some Wonder Clips, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take it over to our sewing machine and just run a stitch as close as we can to the zipper all the way down the edge there. Now my zipper's quite a bit longer than my project like I showed you, so my zipper pull is still down here at the end. If you have a shorter zipper and you can't do that, I suggest you pull the zipper pull about halfway. You can sew all the way there. With the needle in the down position, lift up your presser foot and slide that zipper out of your way, and then continue on down your row. That's just my little tip for that. If you have a longer zipper like I do here, you can just keep it out over here out of the way until we're ready for the next step. Okay, should be looking something like this now. So we're going to fold that open on both sides. And I'm going to do the same thing I did on this side, take it over to my ironing board, press it, and then just run a straight stitch right down that edge just to give it the more finished look. All right guys, so this is what it should be looking like. We are so close to being done. As you can see, this is about how much of the zipper is showing when you don't use a zipper foot. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me that bad. You could get closer if you had one, but I just want to show you that you can totally do these even if you don't have specialty feet for your machine. All right, so we're getting down to the last couple steps here, and this is where it starts to get fun. So very important, step number one, however long your zipper is here, take your pull and move it to about halfway. And then I like to just take a pin and just kind of pin these together, just so they don't go flopping all over. Now that your zipper pull is halfway, again, very important step, make sure your zipper pull is halfway. We're actually going to open up this bag a little bit. We're going to put the outside of the bag edges together and the lining edges together. So again, we've got lining to lining now, outside of bag to outside of bag. And I'm just going to take some Wonder Clips and I am going to pin all the way around all of these edges just to keep everything lined up. And then we're going to sew. So let me do that really quick. Now let me show you a little bit of a trick. I have everything kind of pinned here. When you get to the zipper portion, and you're gonna have to kind of fold it one way or another, and that can be a little bit confusing. And so the way that you want to fold it, take the zipper, fold it in half so that the teeth are pointing the outside layers of your bag. Hopefully you can see that. This is the outside of the bag. And then this is the lining. So fold it so the teeth are pointing towards the outside of the bag, not towards the lining. I will usually stick a little Wonder Clip here just to kind of make sure I have it going the right way when I start sewing. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end down here. I can remove this pin now because I'm going to just line up these edges, just make sure that they didn't twist or anything when I folded it, and put a clip there. Okay, so now that that part is done, we're ready to sew. And what I like to do is just put a little kind of stop and start pin here so that I know. So this one's a little bit different color. So you're gonna leave about a 3 to 4 inch opening down here on the lining side so you can turn your bag. Again, verify that your zipper is pulled at least halfway so that you have an opening here to turn your bag through. So we're gonna start here. We're gonna sew all the way around the entire bag and back here, stopping right here and just leaving this section open. I do a back stitch here and here just so that when I turn it, I don't rip it out. So here we are, and we have sewn all the way around the bag. I'm going to take this opportunity now to just cut off my zipper pulls that are hanging out here. I don't need that anymore. You could also have done it before, but I just find it kind of easier to leave it in there. Now the next thing that we're gonna do before we turn our bag right side out is box the corners. Now if you don't want a boxed corner bag, you can totally skip this step. I find it kind of nice, especially if you're using this for like a sewing or knitting or crochet project type bag. So it's super easy. All you're gonna do, and we're gonna start out down here, stick our hand through our bag here, and I just poke my fingers in the corner up here and just fold it in half, kind of like a taco or like a fortune cookie. Okay, so as you can kind of see, the corners are just folded now. And then we're going to take a ruler, and I'm just going to measure in. I think I want this one to be a little bit more boxy, so I might go more like 2 inches in from the corner. We're just going to draw a straight line across there, and I just like to try and make sure that this seam and this seam are lined up nice and straight. Okay, so hopefully you can see it. I'm doing a little bit better here, but I'm just putting the diagonal on my ruler along one of these edges, and my 2-inch point is right here, so that's going to give me 2 inches. You could do 1.5. So I'm just going to hold that there and just draw a line. Now this is actually an erasable friction marker. Doesn't actually really matter because you're not going to see this. It's going to be on the inside of the bag. I'm still going to throw a couple clips here just so that it doesn't move around on me. Now I'm folding down the other corner, and I'm going to do the same thing. So whichever measurement you decided to use, make sure you just do that on all 4 of your corners, both the corners for the outside of the bag and for the lining. And we're basically going to do it the same way. It's a little bit wonky because we've got this opening here. But I'm just going to stick my fingers in there, pull out that corner, line up the seams so that it's nice and straight. And whatever I did again on the other ones, I want to do on this one. So I did 2 inches there, so I'm going to do 2 inches here. For this one, I'll probably stick just a couple pins in it to hold it. Actually, I think I'm going to go this way with my pins. There we go. And then we need to do the other corner. Okay, now we've got all of those done. What we are going to do is we're going to take this over to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew directly on the line. I do a back stitch at the front and back just to secure it, and then we're going to cut it off about a quarter or about a half an inch away from the stitch line. So we're going to do that on all 4 of our corners. Okay guys, this is what we should have. We are almost done with this bag. We just need to cut off these corners to where you can see the marker here. I like to cut them off about a half an inch or so away. Just don't get too close. Also, if you're a little bit concerned that you didn't do it right, now would be a good time to try and flip your bag right side out and just double check that everything is correct and that your boxy corners are looking correct before you cut your bag, because that way, you know, you can't take it back right after it's done. But the corners should be looking like this, so we're good to go. So we're just going to snip off these ones. Okay, now comes the fun part. We are going to carefully reach in through our lining opening, through our zipper, and just grab this corner of our bag and just slowly start working it right side out. Now just be careful, you don't want to rip your lining too much. If you tear it just slightly, it's not the end of the world. We can fix it, but just be gentle with it. And if you used this foam like I did, it is a little bit bulky, so just take your time. And we can kind of see our boxy bottom taking shape here. Almost our last step here is to sew this opening closed. So you can kind of just take it with your fingers, and it should just naturally fold in that 1/4 of an inch. And you can kind of just finger press it. And then we're just going to take that over to the machine and run a stitch just right along that edge. Just make sure that you close up this opening. And then I usually go beyond where my stitch line is just by a little bit, just so that I can make sure that that's really nice and secure. And then we can just tuck it inside our bag and we will be done. right, guys. So push that inside our bag and then just kind of pop out these corners. Cut off any extra little threads you might have on the outside of your bag there. And voila. You have a nice little zipper pouch here. Fun pocket in there. Perfect for knitting, crochet supplies. Okay guys, as you can see, here is our fun little boxy bottom. Now I did mine at 2 inches, so you can kind of see what that looks like. I usually do them at about 1.5 inches, but I kind of wanted this guy to have a little bit more sturdy, kind of sit on the table, hold himself up type of thing. So I think 2 inches worked out really, really well. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you have any questions, as always, make sure to leave a comment below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because that really helps me out. And I know that you like getting videos like this, so I know to be making more for you. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me for today's project. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.